Before we get into the presentation, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that the land that the park is streaming from is the unceded territory of Indakana, belonging to the Abenaki peoples whose cultures and traditions have stewarded this land for thousands of years and continue to this day. We thank them for their strength and resilience in caring for this land, and as a park, we aspire to uphold our responsibilities according to their example. Thank you for joining us in this important acknowledgement of land. So welcome to Working Woodlands Workshops. My name is Joey Sullivan. I'm the Natural Resources Management intern at both Marsh-Billings-Rockefeller National Historical Park and St. Gaudens National Historical Park. It's a mouthful. Working Woodlands Workshops are designed to connect nature enthusiasts and landowners with natural resource professionals to provide the knowledge and skills to promote land stewardship. This month, we're doing a naturalist theme. So we're covering songbird IDs today in the webinar, and we're gonna follow this up with a naturalist hike at St. Gaudens this Saturday, May 14th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. So if you like what you heard today, hopefully you can join us on Saturday. We still have some spots available, and we're gonna be covering wildflowers, birds, all the fun stuff. So if you'd like to register for that, just shoot me an email. And I think I've taken up enough time. So Ed, if you want to take it from here.
Sure, sounds good. Thanks, Joey. Yeah, so my name is Ed Sharron, and I am the Science Communication Specialist for the Northeast Temperate Network. And I won't bore you with too many details of that, but essentially we help the parks keep track of their natural resources, including birds. I was just out floating around in the Pogue up here at Marsh-Billings this morning, doing some water quality monitoring. We also help with rocky or tidal research in Acadia and forest health and all sorts of interesting other things that the parks are concerned about. But today we're obviously here to talk about birds. And this is a very exciting time of year, of course, for birds. All sorts of action. It seems like every day, you know, there's new birds arriving from their wintering grounds back here. We're based in the Northeast, based out of Woodstock, Vermont, which is also, I live in the general area as well too. So always fun to see what's coming. You know, the past few weeks we've been getting new arrivals. It's always, you know, I keep a little calendar to see, compare year after year when birds arrive, and it's amazing how close they are. Within a day or two of when they arrive, no matter what the weather is. Seems to be, you know, pretty consistent, which is always interesting and fun to do as well. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here, and we'll see what happens, but hopefully this works. Everybody see my screen there?
Yep, looks good.
And Joey, also let me know, you know, we are working on spotty internet. So if I do go out, I do have access to Wi-Fi too. So I might be able to switch to that if we have a problem. So just, Joey, let me know if that happens. But so what we're going to do, the idea here is this is a, I can make this available to Joey. You might already have it, but I can send it to him again, and he can send it out to you guys if you're interested. It's just, it's a list of all the birds that we've detected within our parks. So our parks are based from Acadia, obviously northern Maine, to Morristown National Historical Park, which is in New Jersey. And we have a bunch of parks in between. And these are all the bird species that have been detected through our monitoring over the years. So, you know, from Acadian flycatchers, you know, all the way down to, you know, we got Yellowrumped Vireo is the last one. So, you know, 130 odd species that have been detected during our monitoring. It doesn't mean that's all the birds that are there, just the ones that we've detected over the years. So I made a spreadsheet out of that, and I help with the bird monitoring too. And you know, if you're anything like me, you know, when spring rolls around, you're just kind of shaking the cobwebs out and you know, trying to remember your flower species and your birds and everything. So sometimes it helps to have a little cheat sheet to be able to go over, you know, some of the bird species you're trying to refresh yourself with. And the way I've designed the spreadsheet is.
Ed, it sounds like some people are having some trouble hearing you. Do you think you could speak a little bit closer to your microphone?
For sure. Thanks for letting me know.
Yep.
Yeah, so the way this is designed is that you can come in and rank, you know, if you're trying to learn certain bird species, you can rank them for your song confidence. If you have a high confidence, you can put it as a 1. If you have a low confidence, put it as a 10 or whatever. And then you come over to this sort and filter, and then sort it out so that they'll be listed. I just randomly picked some numbers here just because these are bird species I want to talk to you guys about today. But obviously you can put whatever you want in there and sort it, and then that'll kind of focus you on the birds that you're trying to learn. So what we're going to do is look at a few species. I have about 13 here. Hopefully we have time to get to them all. And then, if we have extra time, you guys can ask questions too, obviously, about that. But these are some species that are, good for this time of year, that are starting to arrive or have already arrived. And hopefully, I think most folks here are from the Northeast. So these are a lot of birds that you may be familiar with. And so what I have, you can see these are all hot linked as well too. So I just hit the button by accident there. And then
It looks like Ed might have just got cut out there. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm messaging Ed and we're going to see if he can get back on. Sorry about that, everyone. You'd think by 2022 we'd have our tech problems solved, but it seems we can't escape them. Just out of curiosity, is my audio working okay for folks? It seemed like Ed was having some trouble. I see thumbs up. Thank you for confirming.
Yes, good.
Okay, so Ed is gonna switch off of his internet and go into Wi-Fi, which hopefully the Wi-Fi will work a little bit better. And I'm seeing some questions about the spreadsheet. We will share that out at the end of when I send out the recording. All right, Ed, it looks like we got you back.
I am on Wi-Fi now, so let's hope that works better.
Yeah, maybe try turning your camera off as well if the internet's being spotty.
Can I still share my screen that way?
Yep. Yeah, you just hit stop video and you can still share your screen.
All right, I'll try that. So yeah, sorry about that, everybody. Hopefully you were getting most of what I was saying. Essentially, we're going to look at these bird species, and we're going to use Ebird, if you're familiar with Ebird in the Cornell labs. These are all hot linked to those. So for example, the blue-headed vireo, we'll go ahead and get into that. This is a, let's see, hopefully this works. Yeah, of course, I was just on this earlier and it was working fine. So there we go. Not sure why that wasn't working, but so Ebird, is an amazing resource. It has, obviously everything you could ever want to know about birds, and you can also record your own observations as well in there, which is, very helpful for scientists as well. They really, it's one of the most successful citizen scientist programs that are out there. But of course, right now it seems to be having trouble. It literally was working 10 minutes ago. So this is a classic, thing with technology. Well, let's see if I can get that to load on the side. But essentially, we have a couple different vireo species that are here in the Northeast that are common. One is the blue-headed vireo. The other is the red-eyed vireo. Blue-headed vireo arrives earlier. It's one of the earlier kind of late April arrivals, at least in this part of the country. And it's they have very similar songs, the red-eyed vireo and the blue-headed vireo, but the blue-headed seems to be much kind of less energy, a lot slower than the red-eyed vireo, which gets really kind of and is most active during the warmest kind of months of the summer. There's been some studies suggesting that actually the warmer it gets, the faster the red-eyed vireo sings. So this time of year, they're not really singing much at all, but the blueheads are the ones that are starting. And as we get later on into the summer, the blue-headed vireo is actually kind of quiet. You don't hear much from them anymore. It's almost all the red-eyed vireos. So it seems to have kind of come back here. So hopefully you'll be able to hear this audio over my computer as well too. But let's listen to the bluehead here. And the way the mnemonics, as they're called, the way to try to remember them, if you can have words associated with them. So you can think of it saying, "Here I am, up in a tree, up here in a tree," over and over again, basically. And this really helps, visualizing and hearing at the same time. It can sometimes help lock it in your brain a little bit better. And that is, very much, the common call that you'd hear for a blue-headed vireo for this time of year. We can go ahead and, if this hopefully works a little faster than it did before, but just to compare and contrast that to the red-eyed vireo, yeah, of course, giving problems again. Compare and contrast that to the red-eyed vireo, you just find that would be, a much faster rendition of that. Like almost there's hardly any pause in between the phrases when a red-eyed vireo is singing them when the blue-headed vireo, which is, as you could see there before, was definitely, kind of takes a breath in between, and the red-eyed vireo doesn't take much of a breath in between at all its phrases. Again, that'll be a little bit later. But I was really hoping I could show you the some more of the cool features of Ebird, but we'll have to play that by ear as it goes here. So a couple other, kind of moving on to another species. Let's see, that is been here for a little bit yet. The first ones arrived in my yard, kind of mid-April. It can be a fun bird. It can be a frustrating bird, depending on, where it tries to build its nest. The eastern phoebes are, very kind of used to people and, don't mind building their nest right above your front door or, over your garage door or, on a porch light or anything like that. So, they can kind of make a mess sometimes. If you could disassemble their nest and they could start, putting it back together, right away. So, they kind of are very persistent birds, but they are fun to have in your yard, as long as you can tolerate them, kind of building their nest wherever they feel like doing it. And they're one of the great bird species that actually sing their name, which is not always the case. They don't say the eastern part, but they do say the Phoebe part, and it's a very buzzy Phoebe. Let's see if we can listen to this. And again, kind of over and over again as well. And they'll be in, they're fly catchers, so they're very good at catching insects on the wing. And once their chicks hatch, they're bringing, constantly back and forth from their nest to, going to catch an insect and bringing it to them, and often singing, throughout the spring and into the summer as well too. Kind of a drab-looking bird, but a very fun bird to watch. Their classic way of observing them and identifying them if they're not singing is they constantly bob their tail up and down when they're perched somewhere. So if you see a bird sitting on a branch kind of gray like this and is bobbing its tail constantly and it's not singing, you can pretty much usually tell that it's an eastern phoebe. And they're very common in people's yards. Again, have done very well with associating with humans.
Hey, Ed, there's a request
Um,
to play the song ID and let it run and then speak about it after so folks can hear the call a little bit more clearly.
okay, thanks for that. Yep, I can do that for sure.
Thank you.
So yep, that's a good one. Eastern Phoebe, those are just arriving. Have been here for a while. One of the ones that is, at least in my yard anyway, just heard recently over the past couple of days, is the ovenbird, which is internet's working a little better, which is great. You don't often see ovenbirds too much. They're in the forest, a forest-based bird, and they have this drab back, which blends really well with the leaves this time of year. They actually build their nests on the forest floor as well. They're one of the few that nest on the ground. That's why they're called the ovenbird. It kind of looks like a little Dutch oven on the ground if you see one, but usually you don't. They're very well camouflaged. But they are one of the louder birds that we have. So you'll usually hear them, several of them, because their sound travels pretty far, and they're often singing to defend their territories. So we can listen to what the ovenbird sounds like, which the mnemonic for that, a lot of people will think it kind of sounds like it's saying teacher, 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 and increasing in volume usually throughout its call. So I'll play the song and let you guys listen to it. So you get the idea there, pretty much, teacher, 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 and getting louder and louder as it goes on. And, they'll sing for quite a while. They don't quite go on as long as the Red-eyed Vireo, but they will continue that song, especially as, a lot of you, I'm sure, are familiar with birds, and a lot of them, sing towards the dawn and the dusk, and that's definitely when, other birds are the most vocal too. I'm going to be daring and see if we can, just because I want to show you, what else Ebird can do, and it can be helpful if you're trying to ID a bird in your area, and if you're not sure if it's arrived in your area yet. If this Explore button works, what you can do is come down to this Species Maps option. And click on that, and then learning more about see if it's arrived in your area. And what it'll do is it'll pop up a map which shows the overall range, which is somewhat helpful. It's not the best kind of part of the feature here, which is the purple. The darker the purple, the more common the bird is. But it's when you zoom in on the map here, you'll see that there'll be some different colored markers, and all the red markers are ones that are recent observations, ones that have taken place. I think it's, I can't remember how many months it is that they consider a recent observation, but it's within a few months. But if you click on one, it actually tells you the exact date that it was observed. So May 5th is the most recent one that was observed at this particular spot. So if you obviously you kind of drill down to where you live in your area, and you can kind of see how many have been seen in your area in that time. You'll have an idea of kind of if it's even arrived in your area. That can sometimes be helpful as well to kind of narrow down the birds that you're trying to identify. Let's do this is another one that's just arriving as well. The black and white warbler. Is a fun one, a beautiful, one of the warblers that arrives through this time of year. Comes from a very far distance away in the Central and South America part of the world. So coming up here to feast on the insects that we all curse, but that they all really need to help feed their chicks. And it is, kind of the zebra bird of the warblers, very much black and white stripes. Again, sometimes birds, you're scratching your head at why they're named what they're named, but this is another good one where, very obvious why it's called the black and white warbler. Makes complete sense because of its plumage. Black and white warbler's song, as you can see here, I like to describe it as kind of a squeaky toy or squeaky wheel. It's very high pitched. Sometimes, as we age, black and white warblers are one of the ones that gets harder for us to hear. It's not quite as high as the Blackburnian, which is even higher out of some people's hearing range, but the black and white is getting up there. So we'll listen to what that sounds like, and you can get the idea of, again, it's very consistent, very much like a squeaky wheel of a toy. So, you can tell by the patterns here too how consistent it is. Another nice thing about the Ebird site here is that it shows you the exact part of the country that it was recorded in, because believe it or not, birds do have dialects. Sometimes a bird that's recorded in Wisconsin or Michigan or Minnesota sounds a little bit different than ones that are recorded in Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont. It is pretty amazing that you can't get dialects of birds, but you actually can. So trying to find ones that are closest to your area can sometimes be helpful. Just to kind of keep in mind when you're listening to these recordings. But that's a good one. Again, very consistent, very kind of high pitched. Warblers often, not all the time, but often tend to be high up in trees. That's a little harder to see them. This time of year is nice, obviously, when the leaves haven't fully come out yet. So the nice pair of binoculars, you can often pinpoint them up in the top of a tree somewhere. But as obviously the leaves fill in, it gets really hard to see the warblers, many of them anyway, because they're spending their time up in the mid tree canopy, top of the trees. So it can be a little harder to see them. So that's why it's always helpful to try to get your songs down as best you can. And just because I teased the Blackburnian, we'll look at that one now. As I was saying, very high pitch, and they do have one that rises in pitch, and then as we can, we'll listen here. So I also find it helpful. Sometimes you can look up these little phrases that help you to memorize bird species, but it often can be helpful to create your own. So for whatever reason, I created my own for the Blackburnian. I guess maybe I didn't like what I read somewhere, but to me, it sounds like it's kind of laughing at the end of its call. So kind of counts 1, 2, 3, and then laughs 3 times. So let's see if we can pick that up in the Blackburnian warbler. One of the more striking, beautiful fire orange red heads on the males anyway. Females, as you can see, are not quite as colorful. But the males have this amazing fire orange red head. So if you do get a good look at them, it's always a treat to be able to see them. There's no other warbler in our area that looks like that. So if you get a visual of it, you'll have a good idea of what it is. But let's listen to its high pitch call here. Okay, so you can hear how high pitched that was too, but you're also probably noticing that there's several options for songs under here. Some birds have quite a kind of a repertoire of songs they can call from, and they're all a little bit different. And the Blackburnian is actually one of those. To make it more confusing, for people when you're trying to learn birds, it's sometimes frustrating to learn. They sing more than one song, and the Blackburnian is certainly one of those. This is usually the website here tries to put the most common at the top, and then as you go down, often it gets less common, but it also kind of depends on the part of the country too. So just just for an example, we'll play a few of the Blackburnian ones. They're all high pitched, so you know that helps, but they do vary slightly. So this is more of the one that I wrote down, the 1, 2, 3, ha ha ha. So you know, that's a little bit more onto what you know, the one that I most commonly hear anyway. And just one more just to show you again the variation. Oops. So it's a variation on a theme, right? It's the 1, 2, 3 really high pitch. This is even the most highest pitch one they do, I think, and that kind of the trill at the end there. So it does help to learn, you know, as many of the songs as you can. But you know, again, the first few, the ones that are on the website, always are the most common usually. This is another warbler that's I've just heard it this morning, and you can see here on the chart as well too. You know, this is one of the ones that is very commonly detected in our area as well. This is you know, the total number that our volunteers have detected over the years. Excuse me. So, you know, obviously for the spring, you know, all our monitoring is done, I should mention, in end of May or June. So that's why it's kind of heavily tilted towards, you know, a lot of these warbler species that are singing the most that time of year. Black-throated green, you know, another one that's, as it leaves out, it's going to be harder to see, but one that sings, you know, sings quite a lot, as you can tell by all the detectants that we have. And this is one that has two very common songs, the ZZZZZ, which I think we'll probably hear in the first listen here. So, you know, if you could kind of pick that up, the ZZZZZ, kind of, you know, all one pitch and then down and then up again for that last one. Let's see what they put for their second song here. All right, I'm going to stop there because that's kind of the same thing, just slower. There is one that varies quite a bit. All right, that's the other one. So this one is ZZZZZ, which, you know, again, you have my sympathy for trying to learn these birds and, you know, again, learning that they have different songs, but it's, you know, again, just kind of a variation on the theme, but let's listen again. And just to do it back to back, so you can hear them right next to each other. And I can't remember which is which. I know I've read somewhere that, you know, one of those songs they'll do more to defend, to attract a mate. One of those songs is more designed for, you know, attracting that female to, you know, kind of set up shop with and raise chicks with. And then once it's kind of got a mate and got its nest location, then it switches to another song, which is more of kind of a defense song saying, hey, I'm here. You know, this is our spot. We've kind of staked our claim here. You know, you other warblers stay away from this spot. And that's how they use those songs to kind of, you know, tell other birds what's going on with them in the area there. Okay, so we're sticking with the warbler theme. This is another fun warbler, the Chestnutside Warbler. Again, perfectly named, very well done on their part there. You know, very apparent patches on the side for the male. Again, these are basically almost all bird species are named after what the male looks like. The females, again, they're, you know, the males are out there trying to attract a mate and trying to, you know, be as visible as possible to them, whereas the females usually are a little more drab or, you know, often spending more time on the nest and, you know, not kind of wanting to be seen. in a lot of cases. So it's probably the reasons that they are more not quite as flamboyant as the males are. And the chestnut-sided warbler is actually a bird species that prefers kind of earlier growth. So if there's been some forestry operations in an area, or you have a part of your yard where there's younger tree saplings coming up that are not to the mature stage yet, you're going to find a lot more chestnut-sided warblers in that area than you would like in the depth of a mature forest. They're just not as prevalent in the deep forests as they are kind of on the areas where there's new growth coming up. So much more likely to have a chestnut-sided warbler encounter in that area. And as you can see here, this is kind of got, there's several different versions I've seen of kind of the mnemonic, the way to remember what they say. I just like the please, please, pleased to meet ya one. There's also one from like the 1800s, I think is something like C, Miss Beecher, which, I don't get that one, but, teach their own, and you can obviously make up your own as well too. But the please, please, pleased to meet you just sounds, makes you happy when you hear them sing that song. So let's listen to the chestnut here. So with a lot of these, it's a bit of a stretch. Please, please, pleased to meet you. It's very fast there. Let's see if, again, you can see a lot of variations on their song. Let's listen to a couple more just to see if we get closer. That's a little closer to what I'm used to. Please, please, pleased to meet you. Just do one more. That one's completely different, right? But again, I think the reason they've front-loaded with other ones because they're a lot more common than the other ones. But that's the thing with birds; they don't always kind of cooperate and sing the song that you want them to sing. So it does help to learn as many as you can. And maybe I'll just say at this point too, some of you are probably already familiar with. There's a bird app called Merlin. It's free. I think it's run by the Cornell people, the same folks that do this Ebird here. It's pretty amazing, actually. It's not quite 100% accurate yet, but it's getting there. Where you just download the app, hold your phone out, microphone out, and it'll on the fly identify bird species as they're singing, which is pretty amazing. It'll highlight. I know if a robin's singing, the robin will appear on the screen. It'll highlight when that's singing. And if there's multiple birds singing, it catches all of them, and it shows you, again, it'll highlight that bird species as it's singing, which is pretty phenomenal. It's come a long way the past couple of years, and it's just getting better. So it's a great, it's not 100% accurate, but it's getting better and better in a great way, especially for birds that are common to your yard. I'm sure it's much better at getting those. So highly recommend downloading the Merlin app. If you're trying to learn your birds. It's a fantastic free app. Just to switch it up a little bit, let's go with the Hermit Thrush, which for my fellow Vermonters out there, this is our state bird. State bird of Vermont is the Hermit Thrush. It's not loved so much for its plumage. It's again, one of the drabber birds. And again, spends a lot of its time on the forest floor, low down, digging through the leaves and things like that. So I think it's kind of well camouflaged for being kind of down low. It does have this rusty red colored tail, and it also, much like the Phoebe, bobs that up and down too. So if you see a bird sitting on a low branch, it's kind of got these dullish spots. And if you can get a good look at the tail and see it, kind of slowly bobbing up and down, you've got yourself a hermit thrush there. The hermit thrush is, pretty amazing song. One of the reasons Vermont picked it, I'm sure, is because of its amazing song. Often described as ethereal. It sounds kind of flute-like. They actually have more than one voice box. so they can kind of double sing on top of themselves, which is why they can make these, this amazing sound. And another common species we have here in Vermont is the wood thrush as well, which sounds fairly similar. We'll actually listen to that one next so that you can get a good compare and contrast. But the best way to distinguish between the two that I've found is that the hermit thrush begins with one solitary note. You can think of one solitary alone, like a hermit thrush, as opposed to the wood thrush, which kind of goes right into its song. So let's listen to the hermit thrush here first, and so you can get an idea. So that obviously is that one note. This, as you can see, because of the multiple voice boxes that they have, you can see like the different levels that they're actually singing at the same time, which is just amazing to see it, visually represented as well as hear it. So that's the very common song of the hermit thrush, which is just beautiful. They tend to sing, most often for sure during the early dawn hours or right as the sun is going down too. Which is a wonderful sound you hear in your forest, towards evening. And let's see. So wood thrush is actually on here. So just to compare and contrast, visually they're quite a bit different too. Much more robust spots on the male wood thrush compared to the hermit thrush, which are much more kind of drab. These are much more pronounced. And to listen to their song, you'll hear that it lacks that single solitary note, but it's still that flute-like kind of ethereal sound. And I don't know if that came through over the speakers, but often these first two notes, unless you're close to them, you don't really hear that very well. Usually it's just kind of that, go right into that second part of the three-part song there. So much more, kind of bouncy, I would say, than the hermit thrush song was, with that, first solitary note and then followed by the trill, just a little bit more complicated of a song with the wood thrush.
Hold on.
We had with the hermit thrush. Let's go into another one of my favorite birds. I was going to say, but they're all kind of my favorites, so it's hard to kind of distinguish the two. But this one is just a visual treat to see and to hear. I feel like this picture doesn't actually do it justice. They are just this amazing scarlet red. That again, this time of year, much easier to see. They tend to spend their time pretty high up in a tree too, so you don't often, and it's amazing, for as bright red as they are, you'd think you'd see them a lot easier, but again, when those trees leaf out, they can hide really well up in a tree, and even though you can hear them singing just 25 feet above your head, you just can't find them. You can't see them. Sometimes they do pop out, which is a treat, but not always. And just, this amazing, again, with the male, amazing fire red. That almost looks like a better picture. That's kind of how I picture a Scarlet Tannager, just unbelievable red. It's almost like a tropical parakeet or something escaped and is flying around or was. They're just, and that jet black wing and the red head is just amazing to see. As you see here, if most people are familiar with an American robin, that's what that acronym is. I think, as far as I know, Roger Torrey Peterson is the one who came up with this. The kind of the founder of the Peterson Guides. That the Scarlet Tannager, can be described as a sound of an American robin that has a sore throat. So maybe the best thing to do actually would be listen to the robin first, just so you can kind of get that as a baseline, and then we'll go back to the Scarlet Tannager. But most of us are familiar with this song here. So one of the songs that you hear through our yards and throughout the year, throughout the summer, is always fun to have. But It's kind of sweet, a sweeter version compared to, let's listen to the Scarlet Tannager here. So it's a little bit subtle. It's one of those things that your ear just gets used to. Also, it's good to always be aware of where you are. And it's not impossible for an American robin to be in the middle of the woods for sure, but they're much more common, in open areas, your lawns, fields, those kinds of things. Whereas Scarlet Tanagers are much more common, high up in a tree in the middle of the woods. So if you're not sure and you're hearing that song, you can lean towards Scarlet Tanager if you're in the middle of the woods and you're hearing that more burry kind of sound. And oftentimes, let's see if they must have it in here somewhere. There's a call that they'll do, the Scarlet Tanager will do, that's extremely diagnostic. Let's see if this is one of them. Yeah, this is it. So that's known as like the chip burr, chip burr, chip burr. Sometimes you only hear that, you won't hear their other song. It's kind of as far as I can tell, it's an alarm call. It's just to, something's going on that they're not quite comfortable with. It could be that you're getting close, or there's something that's, in the area that they want to let their mate know about. So, this is a song that you hear that the robin doesn't do. And if you hear that chip burr, that's the only bird that does it. Really the only one that I know in our area that sounds anything like that too. So that's almost as good or better of a way to identify them than their primary song there. And hopefully, you get a good look at them too, because again, they're just a spectacular looking bird. And just because we did Scarlet Tanager, we did the robin, and then the other one that's kind of within here, again, this is a Roger Tory Peterson thing, is the rose-breasted grosbeak, and he describes it as a robin who's had voice lessons. So this is even more of a sweeter, richer call than what the robin has. Let's listen to that. So hopefully that's coming through. It's just a fuller, richer sound. Voice lessons and a richer, sweeter, fuller. Let's just do that robin one more time, just so you can get that back to back again. So there's a lot of subtlety involved with IDing birds by song, as you're probably picking up here, but it's just one of those things you'll get an ear for. The more you do, the more you practice, the more you listen, you'll get an ear for it. The rose-breasted grosbeak is often in the same kind of area that the robin is. They'll be around your yard and they readily eat from bird feeders as well too. So they do overlap quite a bit in habitat. So it is one that you'll hear very close to where robins sing too. So it's helpful to try to get their songs down. But they tend to sing it in the open more. I've noticed too. So oftentimes you can get a good look at them, and that again, very well named rose-breasted grosbeak. That bright red patch for the males. Females, again, a little bit more on the drab side, but they don't do the singing anyway. You just hear it from the males. And let's another one that actually I'm going to do on the fly. I'm just kind of curious. Usually I've had these in my yard by now, and I don't think I've heard them. So I'm just going to see. We can just do another experiment here, just so you guys can see it again, by going to the explore bird species maps and Yellowrumped Warbler. I'm just curious for my area if they've
Hey Ed, I'm not sure if you're speaking, but it sounds like we can't hear you. I'm just messaging Ed to let him know that we can't hear him and see if he can get his audio to work again. While we're waiting for Ed to hopefully get back online, if anyone has a request for a bird, feel free to put that in the chat. And with these last maybe 12 or so minutes, we can do whatever you guys want to focus in on.
Did that work?
Yep, can hear you again.
All right. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties as usual.
Yeah, maybe the map might be doing too much network bandwidth for it.
Okay, I'll try to avoid that then. Let's go back to this. So anyway, you get the idea with that. It does look like they are arriving, just not in my yard yet. So the Yellowrumped Warbler.
Ed,
Yes.
we didn't actually hear that call. Can we hear the Yellowrumped Warbler call?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, I haven't
Thanks.
got to it yet. So
Oh,
that's a good
sorry.
thing.
Thanks.
No worries. No worries. I'm just coming back to this to show the mnemonics of it, which for the Yellowbump Warbler, it's one of those ones. It's a tricky one for me just because it doesn't have a lot of variation in it. I kind of wrote out here, it's a quick 5 notes, all the same tone, sometimes followed by 4 of lower ones. And sometimes it helps to, some birds will have pretty consistent pauses in between their songs. And, this one tends to have a longer pause between it, unlike, again, the Red-eyed Vireo, which, just goes on and on. This is one of the ones that has a relatively long kind of pause in between its songs. So let's see if we're picking that up on this particular recording here. So I think you can get somewhat the idea on that. I just kind of, describe it as a nondescript Twitter. There's not, there's a little bit of variation towards the end there, but there's not a lot you can kind of, sink a hook into and, kind of, make that be what helps you idea. For me, this is one that I always like is probably a Yellowrump because, of the pause in between, which is, again, fairly long and just kind of that very consistent, kind of twittering. This says myrtle. This is one of the bird species that, the powers that be have kind of decided to name it something different. It's gone back and forth a few times from myrtle warbler to Yellowwump warbler. So, they were considering them kind of subspecies depending on what part of the country you were in, but now they've decided to call them all Yellowrump warblers. Just, again, to make it more confusing for people. I think they do that on purpose sometimes, but this is one that is, pretty good, accurate name. Sometimes it's hard to see because it's on its back. It does have this yellow spot on the back, and then two side yellow kind of epaulets and a yellow crown, which you don't always see either, depending on where its feathers are. But a very handsome bird for sure too. And one that that song there for me anyway, it's one of the harder ones to kind of memorize because it doesn't have a lot of variation to my ear. But it's one that you will hear this time of year for sure. They're one of the earlier ones that we have coming. And just to prove a point too, as far as birds being named, the red-bellied woodpecker always throws people off. As far as a name, clearly it has a very large red patch on its head, and you can't really see much of the red belly there. But often when these birds were named, back in the 1800s or earlier, somebody dispatched it with a gun, picked up the specimen, studied it, looked at all its little nuances. And this one they found as they parted the kind of the feather belly, the belly feathers here, that there is a kind of a prominent red patch there, but you almost never see it. When you're looking at it from a distance. And also the red-headed woodpecker name has already been taken, so I guess they decided to go with the red-bellied woodpecker. And these are species that really, I would say just the past 5 or 10 years that are becoming more and more common up here in Vermont anyway. The southern New England, New Jersey, they were definitely more prevalent, for a while, but as far as where I live, and I've only had red-bellied woodpeckers for the past probably 5, 6, 7, 8 years with any consistency in my yard. And they have one, they're kind of very distinctive as well too. Nothing else quite sounds like them. Let's see if we can get that on here. Yeah, I mean, nothing really sounds like that that we have in our area as far as woodpeckers go. It's just, I don't know, kind of a loud nasally trill, but just, much louder and kind of clearer than, some of our other woodpecker species that you might find in this area, the hairy woodpecker.
It sounds like we might have lost you again, Ed, on your speaker there. Okay, it looks like he's logging out to log back in. Sorry, we're dealing with unforeseen tech problems. Usually we haven't had them this bad, but maybe the nice weather outside is making the internet not want to work, so people go outside. So hopefully he can get back in, but if not, this will be recorded and we're going to send out the links that Ed had prepared and some more resources. And like I said earlier, we're going to be doing an in-person hike where tech problems can't happen at St. Gaudens National Historical Park in Cornish. And we're going to cover birds, wildflowers, pretty much anything we come across. We're just going to do a general naturalist hike. So still got spots open for that. Email to reach out, learn more, and register. And Ed, it looks like we got you back.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Sorry, everybody. Yeah, this is bad, worse than usual for sure. I know we're getting short on time, so maybe this would just be a good spot to open it up to some questions then, just because we have a few minutes left and gone through a bunch of species here.
Yeah, so we had some requests for other birds, but it looks like we might be running out of time for that. But there were a couple questions that I saw coming up earlier. So I'm just going to quickly try to find those.
I think I did see something about a flicker in there, which we can pull that up because it does. I think that was probably brought up in relation to the sound of the red-bellied, which there is definitely some. I mean, that's, you know, you can see that goes on and on. I think there is one that's a little closer to the red-bellied there.
And Ed, could you explain the difference between a song and a call? There was a question about that.
Yeah, can you still hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. Apparently my thing is still going here. In general, you know, I haven't seen it defined to my satisfaction and full, you know, kind of definition, but in general, a song is something that a bird will use to, you know, attract a mate to defend territories. It's generally, you know, complicated. It's got, you know, different kind of parts and phrases to it. Whereas a call is usually something that they'll use in close proximity to each other, just for, you know, kind of comforting sounds of knowing where one bird is in relation to another, or as an alarm call. You know, generally those are kind of short and harsh, and, you know, kind of get the message across quickly that something is going on that they want other birds to be aware of. So yeah, it's more of, you know, the songs are generally defending territory and attracting mates, and the calls are usually more something kind of interspecies related, family group even related, of trying to communicate, you know, something between each other. Some birds only have calls. Really, crows are considered kind of really only have calls. Blue jays, kind of another one that really just, you know, do calls. They don't really have a complicated song.
Cool. Thanks, Ed. So there's a couple people who have heard certain things, like one bird that sounds like look at me, weirdo, weirdo. Do you have any idea what that might be?
It kind of sounds like the red-eyed vireo, possibly. You know, usually it's, you know, look at me, here I am up in a tree, but it could be look at me, weirdo, weirdo. Or there's another one that almost sounds like the indigo bunting. It's possible too, for that call. Let's see, which, you know, people will say that's fire, fire, where, which could be. Let's see. Let's listen to that real quick. Hopefully this comes through. But that's one that they're generally kind of in open areas, not so much in the dense forest too. So that's one that they've heard in that area. I think I can pull that song up. So kind of, yeah, fire, fire, where, here, see it. Which, you know, could be it for sure.
Awesome. Thanks. So it looks like it's 1 o'clock. So we can wrap up here. Thank you all for getting through this with those tech problems. Hopefully you were able to leave here with a couple bird calls and songs that you've got that you can go practice out in the woods. Again, will be recorded, so we'll send that out, and hope to see some of you guys at Saturday's hike as well. So you can email for more information or to register. And thanks, Ed, again, for putting this together. Sorry that we were dealing with some tech problems, but I think we've had a good time anyways.
Yeah, thanks, Joey, and sorry, everybody. Again, that was less than ideal, but I think, like you said, we worked it out.
Yeah. Awesome. All
Hope
right.
to see you Saturday.
Thank you so very much. Really, really great. Thank you so much. Really delightful. Thanks for your energy and your effort doing this. That takes a lot of work to put this together, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely happy to do it. And
have a great afternoon. Get out in the sun now.
Yeah,
go outside. Ciao,
yeah.
you guys. See you next time.
It's the internet telling us to get outside. That's what we'll call it.
Yes, definitely. I was in session, so I missed a lot of it, and I'm sad about that, but I'll catch, hopefully you'll do it again.
Yep. Sounds good. Thanks,
Have
Diane.
a good afternoon.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone. Enjoy the weather.
See ya.